U.S. President Barack Obama is in Beijing, fresh off a stinging round of losses for his Democratic Party in national elections. The opposition party is now in control of Congress. I talked about that and what economic issues Asia must tackle with Derek Scissors. He's a resident scholar at the American Enterprise Institute.
Derek, thank you so much for joining us. You know, U.S. President Barack Obama is going to APEC. His party just lost a slew of elections. The Republicans are back in power. Does this chip away at his bargaining power at all as he goes to these major summits in Asia for the next week and a half? How will he be perceived during this trip by other world leaders?
I don't think it should chip away at his bargaining power. Obviously, his position at home is weaker. But strangely enough, the president still controls foreign policy, not the Congress or the governors, where the Democrats lost and the Republicans won. And the Republicans are more pro-trade. So President Obama should be able to come and talk to people all over Asia and say, I can make trade deals more easily now. I have more people supporting me, even though they're Republican, on this particular issue than I had before. So people might look at him as a lame duck and say, well, you've got 2 more years, you're not going to get very much accomplished. But on the foreign policy side, that isn't really true, because he in some ways has more support than he did before.
There's a lot of talk about free trade. President Obama is pushing his own free trade agreement. From an economic standpoint, how would you classify what is happening in Asia?
I think Asia has a lot of problems. I think people have talked about this before. North Asia is aging. It's not just China. It's Korea. It's Japan. Japan's already old. Aging societies, it's a big adjustment to go from a rapidly growing labor force and lots of jobs and lots of production to an older society which emphasizes consumption. It doesn't make as much, doesn't save as much. Policymakers have a problem with that. Individuals have a problem with that. They don't know how to change their economic thinking. So that's the problem with the big economies in Asia. The smaller economies in Asia are all going in different directions. They've responded to changes in Federal Reserve policy very differently in India and Indonesia. You don't have a direction for the continent except for a problem of aging and a problem of the environment. Both of those can be overcome, but I think people saying that the 21st century belongs to Asia might have been a little ahead of themselves. I think the aging countries, Japan is already old, China is aging quickly, so is Korea. They're going to have to change their economic direction and move away from the idea of producing a lot and exporting a lot and having rapid GDP growth. GDP growth isn't everything. Try to spend your GDP. It doesn't exist. It's just an accounting concept. Personal income, living standards, those can still be raised with older people. So I think those countries have a clear challenge ahead of them, which is they have to shift away from production and towards living standards. The countries that are younger, they've got to decide how much environmental damage do they want? How much manufacturing do they want? Do they want to open themselves to foreign investment or keep themselves closed the way Indonesia seems to be doing? So I think part of Asia has a very clear step in front of it. They have to switch away to a new model. The other parts of Asia, there are going to be a lot of different changes. And rapid growth is possible in the younger countries, but it has to be managed correctly.
Let's go back to free trade agreements. Do you think new trade agreements will just lead to more protectionism within each bloc?
That's a very important and interesting question. The key thing to me, because I think the Trans-Pacific Partnership is the most important of the trade agreements, is whether the TPP is an open agreement or a closed agreement. Now, they'll say it's an open agreement. We know that. But what is it really? Can new members join if they meet the terms without a lot of problems, without a lot of game playing, without long delays? Or is it really we're going to invite only the countries we want and everybody else has to wait on the outside? If TPP is open, I think it transforms into a pan-Asia-Pacific agreement over time, and it's a wonderful thing. If TPP is closed, then China or India or a group of countries will form a counterbloc. And instead of a free trade agreement, we'll get blocs. So the key is TPP really going to be open?
What's the realistic answer?
Well, I think the realistic answer is if I had to bet, I would say yes, but I wouldn't be very confident. I would take an even bet, and if someone said, could you give me some odds, I'd say, no, I don't think so. 50-50, TPP is going to be open. 60-40, that's starting to be a tougher call. So it's not a safe outcome, and the question is a good one because countries have to both prepare for TPP to be open and prepare for it to be closed.
What do you think will come out of the APEC meetings? What would it take for them to be called successful?
Well, I think there's going to be different things for different countries. I think what everyone would like maybe not every single country in Asia, but almost all the countries in Asia, would like, for example, is if China and the U.S. could take a step forward on a tough issue like cyber. Doesn't have to be cyber. Not solving the problem. That's not going to happen at APEC or anywhere else. But just a step forward, diffuse some of the tension in the region. Japan and China on the territorial issues. Some statement between the U.S. and Japan that they're close to being done on TPP, and they are looking forward to everyone at APEC joining. One thing on trade or on trade issues that overlap with security, like in cyber, that would be enough if it's a big issue that involves big countries. If they just announce more energy and environment cooperation, we've seen that before.
We'll leave it there. Derek Scissors, thank you so much for your time and insight.
Thank you.
And you can check out CCTV America's extensive APEC coverage online. Visit us at cctv-america.com and click on our APEC page. There you'll find all of our interviews and segments, plus special online features. Once again, that is at cctv-america.com.